You have been asking yourself a question that most people around you cannot answer. Why does life keep pulling you into isolation? Why do the crowds fade? Why do certain relationships dissolve the moment you start awakening? Why does it feel like the world moves further away the more aware you become? Listen carefully, chosen one. This is not random. This is not punishment. And it is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the opposite. Isolation is one of the oldest strategies heaven uses to protect a divine assignment. The world will tell you that isolation means failure. The world will tell you that if you were truly blessed, people would always surround you. But the world does not understand spiritual voltage. The world does not understand what happens when God plants something rare inside a human soul. Because when that spark awakens, everything changes. Your perception changes. Your sensitivity changes. Your awareness sharpens. And suddenly, environments that once felt normal begin to feel heavy. Conversations that once entertained you begin to drain you. Rooms that once welcomed you begin to feel crowded with noise. You start noticing something strange. The more you grow spiritually, the quieter your circle becomes. The fewer people truly understand you. The more you find yourself walking alone. And if you are not careful, you will misinterpret this season. You will think you are being rejected. You will think you are losing people. You will think something in your life is collapsing. But what if the opposite is happening? What if isolation is not loss, but protection? Protection of something sacred. Protection of something powerful. Protection of something the world cannot yet touch. Because inside you there is something rare. A God spark. A spiritual frequency. A divine imprint that was never meant to be diluted by ordinary noise. And the moment that spark begins to awaken, heaven begins to reorganize your environment. Some voices are removed, some doors close, some crowds disappear. Not because you are being abandoned, but because you are being prepared. Chosen ones are not built in constant applause. They are formed in quiet places, in stillness, in separation. In spaces where the voice of God becomes louder than the voice of the world. That is why this message matters. Because what you have been calling loneliness may actually be divine strategy. In this revelation, you are about to understand 9 truths about why isolation protects the raw power of your God spark. These truths will change how you see your past. They will change how you see your present. And most importantly, they will change how you walk into your future. But understand something before we go further. This message is not for everyone. Most people will hear this and dismiss it. Most people will never understand the weight of spiritual calling, but you do. Something inside you has always known you were different, set apart, marked. If that resonates with you, then this message was meant to find you. Subscribe to this channel. Stay connected to this space. Because what we reveal here is not ordinary information, it is spiritual confirmation. Now take a breath, lean in, because the first truth already explains more about your life than you may realize. First, isolation breaks the noise that would dilute your divine frequency. Look back at your life honestly. There were seasons when you were surrounded by people, voices everywhere, opinions everywhere, expectations everywhere. Everyone telling you who you should be, everyone projecting their fears, their limits, their beliefs about what was possible, and slowly, something began happening. You started feeling tired in environments that once energized you. You started feeling restless around conversations that once entertained you. Why? Because your spirit was beginning to wake up. And when your spirit awakens, your tolerance for noise begins to collapse. Most people live their entire lives inside a storm of voices. Social pressure, cultural expectations, emotional manipulation, constant noise, constant influence, constant interference. And inside that storm, their true identity never forms. But you are not most people. You were never meant to become a copy of the crowd. Your assignment requires clarity. Your calling requires purity. Your God spark requires silence to stabilize. So what does heaven do? Heaven begins removing the noise. Friends drift away. Circles shrink. Rooms become quieter. At first it feels painful. It feels like rejection. It feels like abandonment. But in the spirit realm, something powerful is happening. The static is being removed. Because a divine frequency cannot stabilize in chaos. Your soul needs stillness. Your mind needs space. Your spirit needs silence. Only then can your original voice emerge. Only then can you hear the whisper of divine guidance. Only then can your spiritual power begin to align. Isolation is not empty. Isolation is sacred ground. It is where the world's noise fades, and your true frequency begins to rise. And once that frequency stabilizes, everything changes. Because the moment your divine signal becomes clear, darkness begins to notice, which brings us to something even deeper. Second, isolation exposes the identities you were never meant to carry. This part is uncomfortable. This part is where many people quit. Because when the noise disappears, the masks begin to fall. Understand something most people never realize. Crowds protect false identities. Crowds reinforce performance. Crowds reward masks. In the world, you are constantly being shaped by reactions. Approval builds one version of you. Rejection builds another. Expectations build another. And slowly, and without even noticing, you begin carrying identities that were never yours. The strong one, the agreeable one, the successful one, the people pleaser, the one who never speaks up, the one who always performs, layer after layer, role after role, mask after mask. And as long as you remain surrounded by the crowd, those masks survive. Why? Because someone is always reinforcing them. Someone is always expecting the performance. Someone is always feeding the illusion. But isolation changes everything. When the room empties, who are you? When the voices stop, who are you? When there is no applause, no validation, no expectations, who are you? This is the moment most people avoid their entire lives. Because silence is revealing. Silence removes the stage. Silence removes the audience. Silence removes the performance. And suddenly you are left face to face with your real self, unfiltered, uncovered, raw. That moment can feel terrifying. You begin noticing things you never noticed before. The way you were living for approval, the way you were shrinking to stay accepted, the way you carried roles that had nothing to do with your destiny. And the enemy will whisper something dangerous in this moment. He will say you are losing yourself. He will say you are falling apart. He will say something inside you is breaking. But the truth is far more powerful. You are not falling apart. You are being stripped free. Chosen ones cannot carry false identities into divine assignments. You cannot walk in spiritual authority while wearing masks designed for survival. You cannot carry heaven's fire while living inside borrowed roles. So isolation becomes the furnace, a sacred furnace. And inside that furnace, the false self begins to burn away. Slowly, painfully, but necessarily. The identities built by fear begin collapsing. The identities built by pressure begin dissolving. The identities built by other people's expectations begin crumbling. And what remains something raw, something ancient, something real, your soul. Not the version shaped by society, not the version designed to survive environments, but the version that heaven originally formed. The enemy hates this stage, because once a chosen one discovers their true identity, manipulation stops working, fear stops controlling you, approval stops owning you, and suddenly you become dangerous. Not loud, not arrogant, but anchored, grounded, unmovable. That is why this isolation had to happen. You were carrying identities that would have sabotaged your calling. Heaven was not punishing you. Heaven was purifying you. And once the masks are gone, once the false roles fall away, your spirit begins to stand differently. You walk differently. You speak differently. You see differently. Because now you are no longer performing for the world. Now you are aligning with destiny. But there is something even deeper happening in this season of isolation. Something most people never understand. Because isolation does not only remove false identities, it also reveals something else hiding around you. Something subtle, something dangerous, something that has been draining your energy for years. And that brings us to something the enemy hopes you never realize. Third, isolation protects you from energy that would drain your awakening. This is something most people never see, but you have felt it. You have walked into rooms where nothing was said, yet something felt heavy. You have had conversations that left you strangely exhausted. You have been around certain people and felt your spirit shrink, even though you could not explain why. That is not imagination. That is spiritual sensitivity. And once your God spark begins to awaken, your spirit starts recognizing energy the world ignores. Understand this clearly. Not everyone celebrates awakening. Some people admire it from a distance. Some people tolerate it quietly. But many resist it. Not always consciously, not always maliciously, but resistance is still resistance. Because your awakening disrupts their comfort. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your growth challenges their stagnation. And without realizing it, they begin pulling on your energy. They question your vision. They minimize your changes. They laugh at what you are becoming. Or worse, they try to keep you the way you were. Why? Because familiarity feels safe to them. But chosen ones were never meant to remain familiar. Your life was designed to evolve, to expand, to awaken. And when that awakening begins, the spiritual voltage inside you starts rising. Your perception sharpens. Your discernment deepens. Your soul becomes more aware of darkness hiding behind smiles. But here's the danger. If you remain surrounded by draining environments during this stage, your awakening can stall. Your clarity can blur. Your confidence can weaken. Because energy exchange is real, the world ignores it, but the spirit realm does not. Every conversation transfers something. Every relationship carries influence. Every environment shapes atmosphere. Light sharpens light, but darkness tries to dim it. And when your spark is still stabilizing, constant exposure to draining energy becomes dangerous. That is why isolation enters your life at this stage. Not as punishment, as shielding, divine shielding. Think about it. Why did certain friendships suddenly fade? Why did certain environments suddenly feel unbearable? Why did your tolerance for certain conversations collapse overnight? Heaven was adjusting your atmosphere. Because what you are becoming cannot grow inside draining energy fields. Your spirit requires a different climate, a quieter space, a clearer atmosphere, a place where your spiritual voltage can rise without interference. And yes, that protection can feel lonely. You will look around and notice fewer people, fewer voices, fewer invitations. But what feels like emptiness is actually protection. Protection while your awareness expands. Protection while your spirit strengthens. Protection while your God spark begins transforming into something far more powerful. Because once that spark stabilizes, once your energy becomes anchored, darkness will no longer be able to drain you. You will walk into environments without shrinking. You will speak truth without hesitation. You will carry light that refuses to dim. But first, the spark must grow. And sparks need protection before they become flames. Isolation is that protection, a divine barrier around your awakening, a sacred distance from what would weaken your destiny. Not everyone will understand this stage. Not everyone will respect it. But chosen ones recognize it. Because deep down, you can feel it happening. Your spirit is rising. Your perception is expanding. Your energy is changing. And something even deeper begins awakening inside the silence. Because once the draining energies are removed, another voice begins to emerge. A voice most people never hear. A voice that does not shout. A voice that whispers. A voice that has been waiting for the noise to disappear. And that leads to something even more powerful. Fourth, isolation awakens the inner voice that crowds keep buried. You may have noticed something strange during this season. The quieter your life became, the louder something inside you started speaking. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of other people, something deeper, something older, something unmistakably clear. At first it surprised you, because the world trains you to ignore that voice. From childhood, the noise begins. Teachers telling you what success should look like. Family telling you what is practical. Society telling you what is realistic. Constant instruction, constant correction, constant influence. The world speaks loudly, relentlessly. And if you stay surrounded by that noise long enough, something tragic happens. Your inner voice becomes buried, not destroyed, buried. Covered beneath expectations, covered beneath fear, covered beneath the endless opinions of others. Most people live their entire lives like that. moving, working, achieving, yet never once hearing the voice of their own soul. But chosen ones are not allowed to live that way. Your destiny requires guidance that does not come from the crowd. Your assignment requires direction that cannot be voted on by public opinion. Heaven does not guide chosen ones through popularity. Heaven guides chosen ones through revelation. That is why isolation enters the story, because silence is where the buried voice begins to rise. At first it comes quietly, a thought that feels deeper than normal thinking, a realization that appears suddenly and feels ancient, a knowing you cannot logically explain. Have you experienced that moments where clarity appeared without effort? Moments where you suddenly understood something about your life with shocking precision? That is not random. That is your inner guidance awakening, the voice of the Spirit, the compass heaven placed inside you long before the world began shaping your identity. But here is what makes this voice different. It does not shout like the world. It does not argue. It does not beg for attention. It whispers, quiet, precise, unmistakable. And the more time you spend in isolation, the clearer that whisper becomes. Your intuition sharpens, your discernment strengthens. You begin sensing truth faster than explanation. You begin recognizing deception before words are even spoken. You walk into environments and feel the atmosphere instantly. Light or darkness, peace or manipulation. The world calls this intuition, but in the spiritual realm, this is alignment. Your God sparks syncing with divine guidance. This is where chosen ones begin walking differently, not just reacting to life, but being guided through it. And understand this carefully. Darkness fears this stage, because once a chosen one begins hearing that inner voice clearly, control becomes impossible. Manipulation stops working. Fear loses its grip. Crowds lose their influence. You begin making decisions the world cannot understand. You walk away from environments that once defined you. You follow instincts that defy logic, and people will question you. They will ask why you are changing, why you are pulling away, why you are no longer following the same paths. But they cannot hear what you hear. They cannot feel what you feel. Only chosen ones recognize this voice, because it does not come from the outside. It rises from within. And once it awakens, it never truly goes silent again. But this is only the beginning of what isolation is doing inside you, because hearing that inner voice is powerful. But the next stage requires something even stronger, something most people never develop, something isolation forces you to build, unshakable spiritual strength. And that leads us into something even deeper. Fifth, isolation forces you to build strength that approval would weaken. This is the stage where something inside you begins to change. Not just your awareness, not just your perception, your strength. Because there is something the world rarely talks about. Approval can become an addiction. Quietly, slowly, dangerously. The world trains people to chase it. Likes, praise, recognition, applause, validation from the crowd. And at first it feels harmless, encouraging, motivating. But over time, something subtle happens. Your decisions start depending on it. Your confidence starts feeding on it. Your direction starts bending toward it. Without realizing it, your identity begins leaning on external voices. And once that happens, power weakens. Because destiny cannot be built on borrowed approval. Chosen ones cannot walk their assignment while waiting for permission from the crowd. Your calling will require decisions most people around you will never understand. Your path will require courage when nobody agrees with you. Your obedience will sometimes look like rebellion to those who cannot see what you see. So heaven removes the applause, not to discourage you, to strengthen you. Isolation removes the clapping hands. Isolation removes the cheering voices. Isolation removes the emotional crutch of constant validation. And suddenly, you are left with something confronting. Silence. No praise, no recognition, no reassurance from the outside. Just you, your faith, and the quiet whisper of the Spirit guiding you forward. This is where many people turn back, because without approval, their confidence collapses. Without recognition, their motivation fades. Without applause, they doubt their path. But you are not being trained for comfort. You are being trained for authority, and authority cannot depend on applause. Authority must come from alignment. Alignment with truth. Alignment with purpose. Alignment with the voice that began speaking during your isolation. So something begins to form inside you, slowly, quietly, powerfully, an internal spine. You begin trusting what you know even when others question it. You begin moving forward even when others hesitate. You begin choosing your path even when nobody is clapping. That is strength, real strength, not loud strength, not arrogant strength, anchored strength, unshakable strength. And darkness fears this stage deeply. Because once a chosen one stops needing approval, control disappears, manipulation loses its grip, fear stops working. The enemy cannot steer someone who no longer depends on public opinion, and suddenly your decisions become sharper, your voice becomes clearer, your presence becomes heavier. People begin sensing something different about you, a calm confidence, a quiet authority, a spiritual gravity. Not because the world validated you, but because isolation forced you to validate yourself through alignment with God. This is the pivot moment, the moment you realize something powerful. You are not just surviving isolation. Isolation is building you, forging you, strengthening the core of your spirit. So when you eventually step back into the world, you will not be looking for approval. You will be carrying authority. But isolation is doing something else as well, something even more defining. Because strength alone is not the final transformation. Isolation is also separating two types of people in ways that most will never notice. A quiet divide, a hidden line, and only a few will cross it, which leads to something deeper. Sixth, isolation separates the chosen from the comfortable. This is where the line appears, a line most people never see. But once you cross it, you can never unsee it again. Because many people talk about awakening. They speak about purpose. They speak about destiny. They love the language of depth. They love the idea of being spiritually aware. But something happens when isolation arrives, when the noise disappears, when the distractions fall away, when the silence begins asking deeper questions. Most people retreat. Why? Because silence exposes what noise was hiding. In the crowd, you can perform spirituality. You can repeat words. You can share ideas. You can appear awakened while still living comfortably inside old patterns. But isolation removes the stage. No audience, no performance, no social reward, just truth. And truth is confronting because silence begins revealing things people have spent years avoiding. Unhealed wounds, fear they never faced, insecurities they covered with confidence, and a deep emptiness that distractions were masking. Comfort seekers cannot sit with that. They run back to noise, back to crowds, back to distractions, back to environments that allow them to remain unchanged. But chosen ones do something different. You stay, even when the silence becomes uncomfortable, even when the loneliness feels heavy, even when you start seeing parts of yourself that require growth. You stay. Why? Because something inside you recognizes the purpose. Your spirit knows this process is not random. Your soul knows something sacred is happening. You understand that isolation is not abandonment. It is refinement. And this is where the separation becomes real. Not because you declared yourself chosen, but because you endured the silence that others could not tolerate. This is the invisible line, the line between the asleep and the awakened, between those who chase comfort and those who pursue transformation. Understand this carefully. Darkness loves comfort. Comfort keeps people predictable. Comfort keeps people passive. Comfort keeps people from questioning systems that were never meant to serve their destiny. But chosen ones cannot remain comfortable. Your spirit rejects stagnation. Your calling demands evolution. And isolation is where that evolution accelerates. The world may see your solitude and assume something is wrong. They may think you are drifting. They may believe you are disconnected. But in the spiritual realm, something entirely different is happening. You are crossing the line where awareness deepens, the line where spiritual authority begins forming, the line where you stop living like everyone else. And once you cross it, the world starts feeling different. Conversations feel shallow. Environments feel strange. Old habits lose their grip. Because you are no longer moving through life half awake. Your spirit is alert now. Your perception is sharper. Your discernment is stronger. And not everyone will be able to walk with you at this stage. Some people will stay behind, not because they are bad, but because they chose comfort over transformation. And chosen ones cannot shrink back into comfort once truth has been revealed. You were designed to awaken, designed to see, designed to move beyond what most people accept as normal. But the deeper you move into this awakening, the more powerful something inside you becomes. Your energy begins changing, your presence begins carrying weight, and isolation starts doing something even more mysterious. Something the enemy tries desperately to interrupt. Because the silence you have been walking through is not empty. It is gathering power, and that leads to something even more intense. Seventh, isolation amplifies the raw voltage of your spiritual power. You may have felt this shift already. Something inside you is becoming stronger, quieter on the outside, but heavier on the inside. Your thoughts move differently now. Your awareness moves faster. Your intuition begins recognizing things before words are even spoken. Have you noticed it? You walk into a room and feel the atmosphere immediately. You meet someone and sense their intentions without explanation. You hear conversations and recognize the energy behind the words. That is not coincidence. That is amplification. Because isolation does something the world cannot do. It concentrates power. The world scatters attention. Noise divides energy. Distractions weaken focus. But isolation gathers everything inward. Your attention sharpens. Your mind clears. Your perception expands. And slowly, as the spark inside you begins to intensify. Think about lightning. Lightning does not form in calm skies. Lightning gathers inside dark clouds. Pressure builds. Energy concentrates. Voltage rises silently until one moment, the sky breaks open. That is exactly what is happening inside you. Your isolation has been building pressure, spiritual pressure, mental clarity, emotional depth, discernment, awareness, all gathering inside the same space. The world sees solitude, but heaven sees formation. Formation of power, formation of perception, formation of authority. Because raw power cannot grow in constant distraction. Chosen ones are not trained in crowded rooms. They are forged in hidden places, where their mind sharpens, where their instincts deepen, where their spirit learns to detect truth without needing explanation. And the enemy fears this stage deeply, because once a chosen one reaches this level of awareness, darkness becomes visible, manipulation becomes obvious, deception becomes transparent. You start seeing through things that once confused you. People cannot hide their intentions as easily. Situations reveal their patterns. You recognize spiritual warfare before it fully unfolds. And that makes you dangerous. Not because you are loud, but because you see. And once someone truly sees, they cannot be easily controlled again. This is why isolation had to happen. Your power was forming, your perception was sharpening, your God spark was evolving into something far more intense. But power without clarity can be reckless. So heaven placed you in the chamber, a quiet chamber, where the voltage could rise safely, where your awareness could expand without interference, where your spiritual instincts could mature. Now look at your life honestly. The same situations that once overwhelmed you, you now read quickly. The same pressures that once confused you, you now navigate calmly. The same environments that once drained you, you now recognize instantly. That is power forming, and it is only increasing. Because spiritual voltage does not disappear once it rises. It continues building, expanding, intensifying, until one moment your presence alone begins shifting atmospheres. You walk into places and people feel something different. Not arrogance, not ego, authority, spiritual gravity. A quiet force that darkness recognizes immediately. And that is why the enemy tries to interrupt this stage. Because once the voltage stabilizes, your life becomes impossible to manipulate. But the process is not finished yet. Because when power begins forming, resistance begins increasing. Pressure rises. Confusion attempts to return. Unexpected challenges begin appearing. And many chosen ones misinterpret that moment. They think something has gone wrong. But what is actually happening Is spiritual warfare becoming visible? And that brings us to something even more serious. Eighth, isolation reveals the warfare surrounding your calling. This is the stage where many chosen ones become confused. Because just when your clarity begins rising, resistance begins appearing. You start noticing strange patterns, unexpected conflict, sudden misunderstandings, people misreading your intentions, doors closing without explanation, moments where confusion seems to circle your life. And the natural question appears, why now? Why when you are finally growing? Why when you are finally becoming stronger? Why when your spirit is finally awakening? But understand this truth, chosen one. Darkness does not fight what is harmless. Darkness does not resist what is powerless. Warfare appears when something dangerous begins to rise, and your awakening is dangerous. Dangerous to deception, dangerous to manipulation, dangerous to systems that rely on people staying asleep. The moment your spark began stabilizing, your light became visible, and light does something darkness cannot tolerate. It exposes, it reveals, it disrupts. That is why resistance appears, not because you are failing, but because your presence is beginning to threaten things that once operated unnoticed. Think about it. Before your awakening, certain environments felt normal. Certain behaviors felt acceptable. Certain patterns went unquestioned, but now you see them. Clearly, manipulation becomes obvious. Hidden motives become visible. Energy shifts become undeniable. You recognize things that once slipped past your awareness. And when that happens, something inevitable follows. Tension. Because light and darkness cannot comfortably occupy the same space. So confusion tries to enter, doubt tries to whisper, the enemy begins testing your awareness. You may hear thoughts like, maybe you are imagining things. Maybe you are overthinking. Maybe you should just go back to the way things were. But listen carefully. That voice is not truth. That voice is pressure. Pressure designed to make you abandon the clarity you have gained. Because once a chosen one truly sees the battlefield, they cannot unknow it. Isolation is where that battlefield becomes visible, where you begin recognizing the difference between spiritual resistance and ordinary challenges, where you begin understanding that not every struggle is random. Some struggles are confirmation that your light has reached a level darkness now notices. And that realization changes everything. You stop interpreting pressure as defeat. You start recognizing pressure as evidence. Evidence that your awakening is real. Evidence that your spiritual authority is growing. Evidence that your God spark is no longer small. But here is what the enemy fears most about this stage. Once you recognize the warfare, fear loses its grip because uncertainty disappears. You stop asking, why is this happening? And you start understanding what this means. It means your presence carries weight. It means your awareness carries power. It means your life is no longer invisible in the spiritual realm. And when a chosen one reaches that awareness, their posture changes. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing for your growth. You stop questioning the path you have been walking. Instead, you stand, calm, aware, unmoved, because now you know something the world does not. The pressure around your life is not random. It is confirmation. Confirmation that your spark has become a flame. But the final stage of this revelation goes even deeper. Because isolation was never only about protecting your spark, it was preparing something far more powerful. Something that will eventually be unleashed. And when that moment comes, your life will no longer look the same, which brings us to the final truth. Ninth, isolation is where God turns the spark into a weapon of destiny. This is the part the world will never understand. The world sees isolation and assumes weakness. They see you alone and assume something has gone wrong. They see distance, silence, separation, and they call it loss. But heaven calls it forging. Because sparks are fragile. A spark flickers. A spark wavers. A spark can disappear if the wind is strong enough, but a flame cannot be ignored. A flame illuminates. A flame spreads. A flame changes the atmosphere of the entire room. And that transformation happens in hidden places, not on public stages, not in crowded rooms, in solitude, in quiet seasons where nobody is watching, where nobody is applauding, where nobody is validating your growth. That is where heaven works the deepest. That is where the spark becomes fire. Look at your journey, the loneliness, the confusion, the nights where you wondered why your path felt different from everyone around you, the moments where relationships fell away, the moments where doors closed, the moments where you felt unseen. You thought those seasons were empty, but they were not empty. They were sacred, because while the world was not watching, something powerful was forming inside you. Your discernment sharpened, your spirit strengthened, your identity stabilized, your awareness expanded. Piece by piece, heaven was turning your spark into something dangerous to darkness. And here's the truth most people will never accept. Chosen ones are not meant to blend in. You were never designed for comfortable belonging. You were designed for spiritual disruption. Your presence exposes illusions. Your clarity reveals manipulation. Your awareness awakens people who have been spiritually asleep. And darkness hates that, because comfortable lies survive in darkness. But the moment light enters the room, the illusion collapses. That is what you carry now. Light, real light. Not borrowed belief, not surface-level inspiration, but lived awakening. Fire that was forged through silence. Fire that was strengthened through rejection. Fire that was refined through isolation. And once that fire stabilizes, you stop searching for where you belong, because you understand something deeper. You were never sent to belong. You were sent to ignite. Where you walk, awareness follows. Where you speak, truth begins surfacing. Where you stand, deception becomes uncomfortable. And that is why the enemy tried to isolate you in the first place. Not to destroy you, but because he sensed what you would eventually become. He hoped the silence would break you. He hoped the loneliness would weaken you. He hoped the distance would make you quit. But it did the opposite. It built you stronger, clearer, sharper, more aware than you have ever been before. So hear this clearly. Chosen one, you were never abandoned. You were being prepared. You were never rejected. You were being refined. You were never lost. You were being forged. And now something inside you cannot be reversed. Your awareness is awake. Your spirit is aligned. Your fire is lit. You are chosen, not randomly, not accidentally, but intentionally, marked for something greater than ordinary life. Protected for an assignment darkness cannot stop. And if this message reached you today, it is not coincidence. It is confirmation. Confirmation that the fire inside you is real. So stand in it. Do not shrink. Do not dim your light to make others comfortable. Let the fire burn. And if you feel this truth deep in your spirit, write the number 9 in the comments. Not as a trend, but as a declaration that you recognize the fire forming inside you. Subscribe to this channel and stay connected to this space, because messages like this are not meant for the crowd. They are meant for the chosen. And remember this as you move forward. You were never ordinary. You were never random. You were chosen. And the fire inside you was never meant to go out.